Hello, welcome to this webinar on research and development. From an idea to incentive, unlocking research and development success. I'm Peter Towers, founder and managing director of ESS BIZTOOLS. Welcome to this webinar. From an idea to incentive, unlocking R&D success. Research and development is a significant differentiation within the range of services offered to accounting and bookkeeping firms by ESS BIZTOOLS. We're quite proud of that. We don't know of any other supplier in Australia who is offering product packages to accountants and bookkeepers to help in the delivery of knowledge, systems, processes, to help SMEs through the processes that they need to undertake to be successful at research and development and to claim the research and development incentive payment. That's a significant differentiation for ESS BIZTOOLS, but it is also a significant differentiation for accountancy and bookkeeping firms that utilise our system. And I'll tell you more about that as we proceed on this webinar. Thousands of SMEs start on the innovation activities each year. They do, all over Australia. You can get the figures from AusIndustry. This is the start of the innovation journey, which can be very exciting for the client, of course, but also for accounting and bookkeeping firms, because it opens up a whole range of other opportunities that will really help your firm to attract and retain talent, which is one of the major issues confronting accounting firms in Australia at present. Why? Well, there's so much additional work. First of all, the client needs guidance through the research and development process, and that takes time. The R&D process might be over 2 or 3 years. It mightn't be just 1 year that the client's going to have this association with you on this process. But as they proceed, and if the process is successful, many firms decide they need additional working capital to commercialise their invention that they've made, to capitalise on it. And how do they do that? Well, one opportunity is they could raise capital from the public, and you could assist them on that. But first of all, if they're going to be talking about raising additional funds, whether by borrowing from a bank or other financial institution or in raising capital from the public, they need a business plan that they've really thought through, that you've coordinated the preparation of. Not going off into a room on your own and writing the business plan, but sitting down with the leadership team of the client and working through the issues. We've got complete system notes that you could utilise to make sure that every aspect of the business has been analysed and explored, and a decision is reached by the leadership team. That's the way we're going to operate. So the business plan is very important. But then the next part of the process is the financial interpretation of the business plan. And that's the predictive accounting reports, budgets, key drivers, those very important sub-accounts, inventory, debtors, capital expenditure, research and development. Very important, so it can be monitored. Then we got the cash flow forecast, also very important, and the projected balance sheets, which enables you to play the storyteller role, to be able to sit down with the client and the leadership team and say, well, based on the estimates that you gave us, the information we included in the business plan, this is what the financial position will be. And you've built into it then adequate investment into the inventory accounts, into work in progress, into capital expenditure, whatever else has been identified in the business plan. And this will be your financial position summarised in the balance sheet in 3 years' time. And then you can talk to the clients and make sure they're happy with that projected position, because that's what they're then aiming for. This is important. But once that document's prepared, we then need to have a valuation of the company. What's the company currently worth? How much capital is going to be required to undertake the research and development? How many shares need to be issued? You need to take your client through that journey. And then they're ready to start trying to raise capital, which could be early stage innovation company. If they're under 3 years of age, turnover under $200,000 in the last 12 months, expenditure under $1 million in the last 12 months. They could be eligible for early stage innovation company status, which has a big advantage because the government will pay an incentive payment to the investors. Yes, to the investors. It's the only time it happens in Australia. And the investment the government makes is they will give a tax credit of 20% of the investor's investment that's undertaken as part of the status determinations to be an early stage innovation company. So they get that off their tax bill, the investors. But if they hold those shares for longer than 12 months and less than 10 years, they don't have to pay any capital gains tax at all when they sell those shares that were issued as part of the early stage innovation company status process. Isn't that wonderful? I hope you understand all that. And if you don't, ESS BizTools has got a full package on early stage innovation company to help you give this advice to your clients. Because the SME community need assistance as if you were the full-time employed accountant or chief financial officer, so they can sit down and discuss these issues. This is the benefit we've all got now with the technology we have, the software, the communications facility with products like Zoom, to be able to service clients no matter where they're established in Australia. It's exciting times. So that's the type of help you can give. Now, so you could also look at crowdsourced funding equity raising. Turnover under $25 million, those companies can raise up to $5 million in 12 months, going through the crowdsourced funding process. And yes, we have a product package on crowdsourced funding equity raising because that is very important for SMEs. That's who it was drafted for. Turnover under $25 million. Thousands of SMEs are involved in this R&D process. That's the start of the innovation journey. Now, most SMEs prefer advice from accountants who are specialising in servicing SMEs, but they run into a problem because, unfortunately, not many accountants around Australia offer advice on research and development. I can't work it out, but I get excited when I find that an accountancy firm is actually delivering research and development advice. I hope that after you've watched this video, you'll agree that you should be looking at giving this advice. And with our product package and our training videos and our one-on-one discussions, we'll help you get launched into offering great services with research and development. And then you have the opportunity for these follow-on activities that I just mentioned, business plans, raising capital, or giving your clients the information that they can then raise the capital. So many SMEs and many accountants are not geared up to supply research and development advice, but we can help you if you become a subscriber to ESS BizTools. And we've got a great offer that I'm going to talk to you about at the end of this presentation, so don't go until you hear it. There's a significant marketing opportunity for accountants looking to diversify. At the beginning, I said this was a great diversification event for ESS BizTools because no one else in Australia is promoting research and development the way we do. But it's a significant diversification event also for accounting and bookkeeping firms who take up this challenge. It's not a me too. It's not a subject that every accountant in the town or city that you're operating in is automatically going to be offering research and development. In some areas, there will be more than one or two, of course, in the big cities, but not many. This is a great opportunity. It's what the former tax commissioner was talking about when he said, become a trusted advisor. If you're going to be a trusted advisor, you've got to be aware of all the issues that are confronting SMEs, not just the taxation type ones. There's a lot of other things of concern to SMEs. We're finding new ideas and new problems every year, and we write new material about it. So there's issues out there. And if we are going to be the profession that really services the SME market, we have to look at everything, not only 25 to 50% of it, but the whole thing. So the research and development concept starts with an idea. It's what happens to that idea that's important. So let's start going through it. And I'm going to show you some charts in a moment. But a client comes in to see you and says, I've heard one of my mates has got an R&D grant. A lot of people think it's a grant, but it's not a grant. And I'd like to get one. And you should be immediately able to say, well, you're not going to be eligible for that because you're in a partnership. You're not in a company. So the first very important point is to claim the research and development incentive, the applicant has to be a company, private company, unlisted public company. Eligible expenditure. Well, eligible expenditure has to be a minimum of $20,000 in the calendar year that the claim's going to be made for on legitimate research and development activities. Now, the biggest category of expenditure is labour. It can be your client's labour. It could be contractors' labour that's been engaged to undertake various aspects of the research and development activities. But it has to be documented. It has to be recorded. We need to get information daily, weekly, monthly that relates to what the people did. It's just not a matter of saying they turned up for work and we paid them. There needs to be documentation kept of what the activities they undertook that were part of research and development. There might be other things they do for your client. Well, that's not claimable under the research and development. Within ESS BIZTOOLS, we've developed a system with 46 separate BAS forms, we call them, Business Advisory Service forms, 46 of them. You won't use all of them in one client. But if you handle 10 or 12 R&D clients over a year, you might use the 46. We just made sure we've got them in there in case someone needs them. The minimum annual expenditure, I've told you, is $20,000, but it can cover more than one project. In that process, there could be any number, 3, 4, 5, 10 projects being undertaken. Now, the benefits vary on the turnover level of the company. We're talking today about small business. So basically, we're looking at the turnover level. The first level is $20 million. It starts off with a tax rate. The tax rate's 25%. And the incentive is 18.3%. So the R&D incentive is calculated at 43.5%. of the eligible research and development expenditure. Now, what are the benefits of doing this? There are significant benefits because out of this process, the company may develop a great product or service that they can commercially exploit into the marketplace or enter into deals with major companies that they will produce the product under licenses and your client gets paid a royalty fee. There's a number of opportunities that will be available. There's also the tax offset, but I don't think people start off doing research and development just to get the tax benefit. They're looking, first of all, to build something that will be valuable for their business, for their company. And the government assists them because the government understands that not all these experiments are going to lead to success. They mightn't prove anything. So this program will fund failure, in effect. Someone rang me one day and said, "Oh, it didn't work. They couldn't prove what they were trying to prove, so that was a wasted effort, I'm afraid," because I'd been following him up to see how they were going, this accountant. It was one of our subscribers. And I said, "Hang on, you can still claim it. They've kept the records, haven't they, of what they did?" Oh, I've got it wrong, have I? I said, "Yep." It's not that you've got to be successful, that you've got to create a whole new mousetrap or whatever, as long as you have undertaken the research activities and documented them. The tax office will allow, and AusIndustry, who is the other major government department involved in this program, will approve the expenditure. So I've told you that the tax incentive is 43.5% of the eligible expenditure. Now, if your client, though, is running at a loss and the company's turnover is under $20 million, and what I'm about to tell you only applies to companies with turnovers under $20 million in a 12-month period. If the company is trading at a loss, the company can elect in their tax return that the tax office will refund to them the cash equivalent of the research and development incentive amount. So for argument's sake, if the expenditure is $100,000, so that would mean 43.5%, $43,500 is the amount that the tax office would pay within 30 days, as long as all the information's been lodged, within 30 days of the tax return being lodged, will make that direct deposit to your client's nominated bank account. And a lot of businesses then use that money to keep on doing further research and development investments, investing in that process. So it keeps them going. It's a great scheme. So this is the basic information of how the research and development system operates. And I hope that you will become a regular participant in this overall program. So I'm now going to share my website with you, which you should now be able to see. We have three major product packages in ESS BIZTOOLS. We've got a whole range of individual ones, but what we are going to be looking at is the financial forecasting package, the one over here on the right, which covers a whole range of activities, as you can see what I'm bringing up on the screen there now. And we are going to go to research and development. So I'm clicking on research and development. And we've now brought up the research and development package, and I'm going to download the content so that you can see it. Within the research and development, we have a procedure control form, which I will show you. Hopefully you can now see the procedure control form. This is the guidance document, if you like. It takes you through how this whole process works. You'll notice we've got these forms that I referred to before. The BAS 5505 is on planning a research and development project. So if you wanted to have a look at that, there's the form on the screen now, planning a research and development project. You put your client's name. It's a good idea to have project numbers. They might be undertaking 6 or 7 projects at once. What's the title? What's the purpose of this project? That's a key question that you have to answer when you lodge the return going to AusIndustry. Proposed project commencement date, completion date. Who's the project leader? Reference material. And we've got there, refer to planning a research and development project. So that's linking to a paper that describes that particular aspect. And all of these papers and forms are part of the system if you become a subscriber that you get. So the idea is to record here now the key documentation. What's the idea? What's the objectives? What's the number? Who was on the original small team? This is very important, knowing who these people are, especially if they are not employees, because confidentiality, information technology all come into play. What was the result of the preliminary investigations? Who's the project leader? What prior art searches have been conducted? We're going to talk about that. What was the outcome of the prior art searches? Have we found that we can't find anyone else in the world that's got a patent on this product? They need to develop hypothesis or hypotheses. What were they? You know, what are we attempting to prove? Yes or no? That's the number. Describe the new knowledge intended to be produced. So this is the summary form that's putting together information that at the end of each year has to be prepared, documented, and submitted to AusIndustry no later than 10 months after the end of the financial year, which obviously for 30th of June year end is the 30th of April the following year. But I don't recommend you wait until the end of April to lodge, because there's always a lot of other people lodging at that time, and it takes a fair while to get the process, because you need the reference number that AusIndustries will send back to your client. You need that number to go into the company's tax return. So you can't lodge the company's tax return until you get that. So the ideal time to lodge is no later than mid-January, I think. But if your client's trading at a loss, they'll be looking to get that refund, unless they've elected they don't want the refund. But if they want the refund, you'll have clients starting to cause some inquiries to be made, probably from around the end of July. How's the accounts going? Because we want to get some cash back into our business. So I'm going to leave that particular component there. So I'm just giving you an idea that this whole process is spelled out in this procedure control form. Now I'm going to leave that now because I want to show you something else. So in this summary, we've got the procedure control form, which guides you through the process. Then we've got the list of the BAS forms that we've utilised. And as I said before, there are 46 of these. And at the end of this, we have the and what I'm looking for here now is the flowcharts. So we've got 13 flowcharts in this system. I'm going to pick on the first flowchart, which is planning a research and development. So it's the flowchart for the determination of new knowledge. Now, we've designed the flowcharts to assist you to have a conversation with your client. You could bring it up on the screen. You could do a Zoom meeting with your client, whereby you could be sharing your screen and showing them as I'm showing you. So what's it all about? Where's it all start? Well, obviously, we've got a company leadership team members, and we're going to have an idea. And I mentioned in the preliminary information, there's got to be an idea to have a research and development project. And we've got links to the papers, and I'll show you a couple of the papers as we go through, and these various forms. So when you're identifying an idea, well, there's a form to be filled in. It might be an apprentice that says to the foreman, why don't we build a little machine like this to handle this job? Because that job takes 80 minutes for every job that we're working on in this workshop, so we'd save a lot of money. And we could probably sell that to a lot of other businesses. The foreman might take it to the manager, and the manager says, oh yeah, we'll have a look at it. We'll form a small team. You can allocate 2 other tradies to work with him, and they can have 2 days each, and get them to undertake the preliminary investigations, and then we'll examine it. And along the way, we better make sure we'd be eligible for the research and development eligibility. And that's when they'd find out that they have to be a company and they have to spend at least $20,000 in the financial year on legitimate research and development activities. So that's a decision time, isn't it? Do you wish to proceed? The decision at that stage might be, no, it's not going to be feasible enough, or it's only really going to take a couple of $1,000s to do this bit of research, and we'll just do it and use it in our factory. But if they decide they are going to proceed, it's a good idea to appoint a project coordinator, someone who's taking the records, because you'll notice in this whole exercise, there's a lot of record keeping involved. And incidentally, there's a lot of accountants say to me, Pete, we can't get involved in research and development advice because we're not engineers or scientists. And I say, well, why have you got to be an engineer? Why have you got to be a scientist? Oh, to undertake the research. I said, you've got it all wrong. You're not doing the research. Your client's doing the research. Or the people they've hired are doing the research. Now, the people they've hired, which is an eligible expenditure on this program, could be a university team, could be people from special consultancies, could be team members staff who are working on the project. Over the years that I've been involved in research and development, it goes back a long way, I found a lot of the people directly involved that are on the client's payroll that spend a lot of their working days undertaking research and development are in fact overseas residents. They're people having a break from university, or they've just graduated, so they're having a year off before they go back home and get into serious work, or go back to uni and do another degree. And they're working on these projects. So they need to have the system put in front of them to understand the necessity to complete forms. Because if there's an inquiry about certain aspects of what was undertaken, what was done, it might be 2 or 3 years' time, and that person may no longer be in Australia. They've gone back to their homeland and they're now gainfully employed there. You can't track them down or expect you're going to be able to track them down to answer questions from AusIndustry or the tax office. So we need to make sure the system's right. The first big question is, what's the prior art? Now, prior art is a quaint legal term that goes back centuries, but it's basically checking that someone hasn't already registered this product as a patent somewhere in the world. It's a good idea to have your client talk to a patent attorney and to pay the patent attorney to do some searches. The client can do their own on the internet if they think they're proven by having put various questions into the system and not found anything. They should be dating those reports that the computer prints so that they can retain them to utilize them in the future if they need to prove that they did research. And they need to document what they found from the prior art. They might have a research and development manager. Some businesses do, which they would then be reporting to him or her. And then they need to identify the core activities. There needs to be at least one core activity in every project. So this whole process is forcing them to think it through. The government originally based this legislation on what they understood happened in universities and in major companies who are undertaking research activities. SMEs were not really thought of, I don't think, in the initial drafting of this legislation. But if our SME clients want to be able to claim the benefits, they need to make sure they keep their records in line with what the legislation wants. So we need to identify core, and we need to be talking to our clients about, this is all about the creation of new knowledge that's not currently known. So they need to be identifying what they're trying to achieve. Now, that might change a bit as they go through undertaking their research activities, but it cannot be known or determined in advance on the basis of current knowledge, information, or experience, but can only be determined by applying a systematic progression of work, just like you'd expect to happen in a university or a research organisation. And part of that is the identifying of the key questions they're going to be asking. And these are referred to as hypotheses. There's one question. If there's a number of them, are the hypotheses. And they need to document what happens when they did something. And this is where I got the phone call from, as I said, an accountant that said, oh, it didn't work, so we can't claim it. Well, as long as they've gone through this process, they can still claim the expenditure that's been undertaken. If there's been some professionals appointed, as I've indicated a couple of times, to assist, they should be recorded. And there needs to be consideration given about protection of intellectual property once you've got external people involved as well. And there's a very strong reason for making sure that your employment agreements with your team members are adequate, especially if someone that's not normally involved in anything that could even be considered to be research and development somehow or other gets involved in the process. That person needs to have signed a supplementary employment agreement to cover their position, their work here. Otherwise, you could find that someone's putting their hands up to say, well, I think I own part of this project. And there could be advice coming from various experts. It should always be documented and material identified from other sources. And every so often there needs to be a review. What have we assembled on all this? What's it all mean? Are we getting anywhere? And you could be involved then with sitting down with the clients, not as an engineer or as a scientist, of course, but making sure the paperwork's been completed. And this is where I see a definition of what your role really is in research and development. I think you're the internal auditor. You're there to make sure these various forms are all filled in, that it's done daily, weekly, monthly. I think there should be a monthly review that you undertake to see what's going on, look at the documentation, check it back against our checklists to make sure it's all being done correctly. Because this is the substantiation for a substantial income tax claim. There's the checklist I'm talking about. I think it's a good idea to produce a research and development plan for each project that's been contemplated. Now, for a company with a turnover less than $20 million, that is not mandatory. It is for companies with higher turnovers, but I think it's a good concept to produce. It also could come in handy in any negotiations that might be necessary to substantiate that this was a legitimate activity with AusIndustry and the tax office at some later date. You could produce, well, we had a plan, we had a whole concept. That's what we were trying to achieve. And that plan would then list who was involved, and it would then flow through to the development of a research and development budget, which I think is very important. That your client sat down and thought about, what's all this going to cost? How many man hours are we going to have involved in all this? Are we just giving these people an open checkbook, or are we going to try to curtail the expenditure? So Are we doing up a budget and saying, okay, that works out at costing $65,000. We're prepared to allocate some extraordinary extra expenditure. So we've allocated $100,000. The board of directors would want reports coming back to them every month so they can keep track of what's going on and what it's costing. And then it should go to the board of directors. The legislation assumes that it's going to the board of directors. Now, some of your clients will only have one director, of course, but perhaps they've got a board of advice. Hopefully they have. So the report should be going to them, where it's been viewed by other people and then authorised for the expenditure to be undertaken. Now, along the way, you may decide that, oh, this is a bit iffy, really. Are we really going to be eligible for this tax incentive? My client would like some certainty that what they're going to be doing will be approved by the tax office. So an application can be made for an advance finding. So your client would need to do everything we've done up to this stage to submit a complete summary as to what is going to be undertaken. That goes to the tax office, and the tax office and AusIndustry then give a ruling, and that ruling comes back in an advance finding, which could be for a period of 3 years. And saying, okay, we've looked at all this and we've approved the expenditure of $100,000 over 3 years as a legitimate activity. The key thing then is to make sure that that's how your client undertakes the work. They don't start doing other things because they're not covered by the advance finding. Because as long as the work is then done in accordance with the advance finding, that has committed the tax office and AusIndustry to approving it. So there's some certainty. But that is the only time that you have to apply for any sort of government approval in this process up to this stage. So your client goes ahead and creates all the activity and spends the money through to the 30th of June. And then for the next 10 months, you've got the time to finalise the documentation, submit the initial report to AusIndustry, and then lodge the tax return with the tax office to claim the expenditure. So that's a brief overview of how the research and development journey starts. What I want to share with you now, though, is in effect how it finishes. So I indicated there were 13 flowcharts. I'm now going through to our final flowchart, which is research and development. Due diligence records for the year. You'll see these flowcharts are all connected. 64 is the previous one. We are going to run a separate webinar presentation looking at the whole flowchart story, but it will take too long to refer to it now. So I've skipped through and said to you, at the end of the process, so you've got to the 30th of June, you've got under 30th of April the following year to lodge the documentation. What's got to be looked at in the preparation of the report to go to AusIndustry? Well, we're going to have a various things, the appraisal of projects for research and development, and these are all the BAS numbers. This is the 46 forms, or some of them, that we have referred to. Research and development project plans, board of directors minutes, they're required. Planning the systematic progression of work. So all of this documentation. Now, you might not have all things for all of this, but the employee time, the supporting R&D activities. Software. Software is a very iffy item. If your client is producing software for sale to external businesses, basically okay. But if they're producing software for use wholly within their own business, they basically can't claim research and development on software. That's unfortunate. What's the results of the systematic progression of work? So these are the forms that you would look at. Now, when we're talking about getting approval before I didn't skip the overseas work. Getting an overseas finding is very difficult. You have got to establish that it is not possible to undertake that research and development activity or part of it in Australia because of Australian laws or physical setup of Australia, or very hard to achieve. But you can apply to the ATO for approval. And if you have got that overseas finding approval, most definitely you need it when you're finishing the form. So approval from ATO, did you lodge an application? Did you obtain the approval? Some projects will still be in progress. So all of this is getting assembled so that the research and development tax incentive application, the registration of research and development activities, can be prepared to go to what I'm calling AusIndustry all the time because that's their common name, but it's the Department of Industry, Science, Energy and Resources. And this document has to be lodged within 10 months of the end of the financial year. And if you've got a different end of financial year applying to some of your clients, well, obviously you calculate the 10 months on. This information is reviewed by the AusIndustry team, and they're very experienced. I did have a contract with AusIndustry at one stage on the COMET program, Commercialising Emerging Technology, which was the first major activity that they had done directly doing with the SME community. So I understand how AusIndustry work. They've got some very capable people working there. So if AusIndustry is happy, they send a registration number to the company for inclusion in the company's income tax return. This indicates to the ATO that AusIndustry has undertaken a preliminary review and are basically happy to proceed. And that then means that the company would get the benefit. So it's the 43.5% of the expenditure if the turnover is under $20 million as the claim, or if the company's trading at a loss, as the potential amount of the cash refund to be paid out. And that's the way the process works to ascertain where we are going on this overall process to understand the journey. So research and development presents a tremendous opportunity to accountants, bookkeeping and business advisory firms to clearly differentiate yourself in the marketplace. There's no doubt in my mind about that. And I've already explained to you the following processes that can occur, which will contribute substantial income to the accounting or bookkeeping firm and will help you in talent attraction and retention. ESS BIZTOOLS developed this package, research and development, to assist your firms to service SME clients, to offer a service to these clients which will assist them to substantially grow their businesses, and some of them to scale up, become quite large businesses. Now, some of them might do that and they might outgrow your firm, but you've had the joy of working with them as they created it. And that experience, that knowledge will help you with other clients that are on the way through. Or you can grow your accounting firm to keep on going with them and to be successful right through. So this is interesting and challenging work and will definitely contribute to talent attraction and retention for your firm. Now, I know that I've said that 3 times in this presentation. I think it's very important because there's a lot of firms telling me they've got real problems in attracting people. And here's the good news. We're offering a 50% discount on our packages. And that's called the end of financial year, but it's also the welcome of 2025-26. So it's available until Tuesday, the 8th of July. 50% discount. We really want to assist accountants and bookkeepers to get started on this journey. Please think about it. There's a lot of SMEs out there need your help, not just in R&D either, of course, in all the other key ingredients that are included within that product package. For details, please log on to our website, www.essbiztools.com.au, and click on Packages and Pricing, and then click on Financial Forecasting Package, because it's within the Financial Forecasting Package that the Research and Development Package is located. Now, obviously, if you want to know more, you can contact me. Send me an email, peter@essbiztools.com.au, or telephone me 0418 190 181, and I will get back to you. If you do contact me, I'll be saying to you, do you want a complimentary webinar? We go through this in more detail with your team. You can have your whole team. I think the record is I had about 75 people in on one webinar. We did at one stage. Just how many people were in the room. They had a big screen, they told me. I think this is a key component of the advisory services that we believe are very important for you to be presenting to help your SME clients survive. Financial, commercial, management accounting, they're the key issues that are so important to help our SME community survive and thrive. And there's a lot of challenges out there at present. They need your services as if you were the employed internal accountant or chief financial officer. You pick which title you're most comfortable with. But we're going to supply you the services the same way. So we give you a commitment that we're going to continue to work to produce material and ideas to assist you to deliver these services. You will be invited, and we want you to attend a training session of 1 hour each month for 10 months of the year. So there's 10 training packages a year for each of those 3 key categories. And if you want to, you can go to the other ones as well, or your team camp. All your team is invited to participate in the training. We produce a newsletter each month called Business Plus, which is intended for you to badge and send to your clients. It contains 4 to 6 articles, which we tried to spread over the whole category of small business. So over a year, we produce around 65 to 80 articles that are not just for one category of small businesses. We're trying to spread it over them. And the articles are all inviting the client to contact you to have a discussion. And what we suggest is you make contact with the client. You think about what article could be of interest to what client, and then you follow through with them. This is the way we believe advisory services has to be delivered. The taxation return is important, but it doesn't help your clients run their businesses or make money or create value for their business. It pays to Canberra what Canberra's entitled to. Doesn't help them run their businesses. So I hope this overview has helped you to have a better understanding of how the research and development system can really add value to your clients' businesses and will definitely assist your accounting firm to survive the challenges that are confronting accounting and bookkeeping firms as we move closer and closer to 2030. Thank you for being with us. Have a great day. Goodbye. And I look forward to hearing from you on any questions, or I would be very happy to welcome you as a subscriber, member of the ESS BIZTOOLS. Stay safe. Goodbye.